Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LEVO League's first live webinar from Amsterdam. Just gonna wait till a few more people come in. We're with 6 now, so we should be starting up soon and get started. So just bear with me for a few moments. All right, let's get started. So like I said before, welcome everyone and hopefully you're looking forward to tonight. I definitely am. My name is Kim van Andel. I'm part of the LEVO team in Amsterdam. And we've got a live webinar tonight. The topic is how to talk to your manager. And for tonight, we've got a lovely expert coming in, Floriana. She's a communication expert and she knows everything about how to talk to your peers on the work floor or after work. I'm pretty sure that there's no one else in the world who can introduce Floriana better than herself. So I'm not even going to try it. I'm just going to leave it up to you. Floriana, can you hear me?
Yes, Kim, can you hear me too?
I can hear you perfectly. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for this. Thank you for arranging it.
I'm so happy that you can help us out tonight. So we've prepared a few questions for you. But first, tell us more about yourself and what you do and just the few parts of communication that you really like to share with us.
Okay. Well, yeah, I won't take too much time into for introducing myself because I already have the bio on the website. And as you already said, I'm a communication specialist, and I graduated the persuasive communication master here in Amsterdam at the University of Amsterdam. And during the past 8 to 9 years, I've been working in, just multiple communication campaigns and for various industries, like financial services, e-commerce, beauty, cosmetics, a lot of other extra stuff. And this passion for communication started like 10 years ago. And recently I've also begun my education in coaching. Yeah, so that's my latest passion, and I want to become an international certified coach. And that's pretty exciting as well. And so I will also try to give insight from this point of view today, not only from a communication point of view, but from a coaching point of view as well.
Perfect. We'll need that.
Yeah. Okay, well, just to give you a quick background in coaching and what we do, I'm working with a coaching institute in Canada, and these methodologies are designed to help any client to find the root cause of any unconstructive pattern or behavior in their life or in their careers. So actually, the coaching is a science as well, just as communication is, and you can apply it to different areas of your life. And I want to I decided that I won't be giving only tips and tricks today, because I believe only by giving tips won't solve the cause. So therefore I intend to give some insight into how to be true leaders and how to get to know ourselves better and better, and the rest will follow. So okay, and if you're fine with this scheme, I can already jump in and start.
Great. Yeah. So we've got a few questions prepared for you, so you could kind of prepare your answers as well, of course, because I know that if we just firing big questions to you, that it would be nice to have a little bit of preparation to give us the full answer. For anyone who's listening, you can still ask live questions as well. We're going to go through 5 prepared questions before. After that, we go into live Q&A. So if you have any questions in between, they will be addressed at the end of the webinar. Just type them into your webinar panel that you have. There's a little section that says questions. You can type your questions there. From there on, I'll ask them, Floriana, later on in the webinar. So let's
Okay, cool.
see. Let's dive into question number 1.
Well,
Yes.
before that, Kim,
Yeah,
just
sure.
a little bit before that, I want to explain a little bit about the main principles that I believe we need to keep in mind throughout the whole session. So I think, yeah, many of you were interested in getting a better understanding around communication with your manager. And I think the #1 thing we need to take into account, and I've been a preacher my whole life for this, is empathy. So in case you worked with, I don't know, marketing teams, or you are in a legal team, you have already heard about this principle, is know your customer, right? In this case, today, your customer would be your manager. But keeping this principle in mind and understanding the needs of your manager, put yourself in her or his shoes. Try to understand what drives her, the objectives she has to attain, the triggers she answers to. Everything like this will help you create and improve a better communication with that manager. Now, let's see why is this important. So, okay, we've got this principle, know your customer, and empathy, based on empathy. But why is it important? Let's take one step back and let's look at a simple version of the human communication model. Just a simple version of it, yeah? Let's see how we take information from the outside world into our brain, and let's see how that in turn affects our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, right? Because, yeah, we should not forget that the reality we normally experience is largely determined by what we have inside our heads, right? So let's look at this simple communication model. And it's interesting, perhaps, yeah, it's not going to be rocket science what I'm going to say here, but it's just about the consistency we look at these things, and the consistency we apply these principles in our day-to-day life. So this human communication model, the very simple version of it, implies that we have a sender where the message originates, yeah, and that sender encodes and transmits the message through a specific channel. And normally we perceive and we receive messages through the 5 senses, 5 human senses, right? So our perception about the message will be influenced by these 5 senses. Now the message will be received by the receiver, obviously, who decodes the message according to the different filters the receiver has. Filters such as values, beliefs, knowledge, and so on. So what research showed is that for an effective communication to take place, both the receiver and the sender have to be at the same level. So they have to have the same level of like attitude, beliefs, physiology, energy. They have to be at the same position, at the same level. And knowing now going back to the first principle, knowing your customer, knowing your manager, will help you to actually stay and be at the same level with your manager. So to make sure that an effective communication process will take place, we need to make sure we position ourselves at the same level with our receiver of our message. That's a key thing that we need to understand. And then from here on, we will just detail what exactly does this mean, right? And one last principle that I also want to keep in mind throughout the whole session. So we have now the know your customer, the human communication model, the simple one, and then know your objectives, right? So obviously, if we have some clear outcomes in our mind, outcomes that we want to achieve during that conversation, then we know what questions to ask, we know how to formulate the message, we know how to guide the conversation in order to achieve our aims, we know how to how to play with our physiology, how to play with our tone of voice, and so on. But we must know the outcome of any conversation we want to have. So if you want to go and talk to your manager for any kind of reason you may have, you need to know the outcome of that conversation, and then you need to prepare, and you need to have clear message, right? So I want you guys to keep in mind these three things. I want you guys to keep in mind that we need to understand exactly our manager's needs or our receiver's needs in order to achieve an effective communication process, and then know your own objectives. So with that in mind, of course, I think many of you can come up with a few reasons why we normally don't know what the manager needs or what they actually want from us, or they must have had a hidden agenda. They don't always communicate with us, blah blah blah. So we can have tons of reasons why we won't be able to know exactly our manager, so to know our customer. But I'm telling you, change in your perception and change in your behavior is not about ability, it's about motivation. So if you're truly motivated to get something out of a conversation with your manager or with somebody you want to talk with, you will find out. You will find out what they need from you. You will find out who your customer is. So it's just about motivation. Be very precise and very focused on this. Okay, now Kim, with this in mind, we can start and we can dive into the first question if you want.
Great. Well, Floriana, I love it that you say don't just barge in with questions. Don't barge into that office and tell your manager, spill your heart out, tell everything you want from them, or ask your questions, but come prepared. Right? That's
Exactly.
what you say. Just so
Exactly.
get to know your manager, know what they expect from you, want from you, know your objectives, know what you really want to ask, but also think about what the outcome could be, and how to respond to that probably as well, right? Because when you go in with a question, you can either have a yes or no,
Yeah.
and you do want to get the conversation going after that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we definitely need to understand ourselves and understand them as well. So then we
Yes.
need to position both of us. We need to be at the same level. We need to talk from the same position. Otherwise, it's not going to be an effective communication process.
Okay, so with that in mind, we'll go into the 5 questions that we've got prepared. I'm very curious what your answers will be without knowing the manager behind it. Um, I am
Let's
very
see.
curious, so let's see. I'm diving into the first question now. And this is one that I've actually came across so many times when I was still working in my corporate life, is that you just take on work, you want to show your manager and your team, of course, as well, that you're a good worker, you're a hard worker, you can do anything, and you take on work, 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 you don't mind working a few late nights, everyone's doing it. But at one point, it comes down to that you're swamped. You cannot take on any more work, um, but your boss or your manager is telling you to take on more work. How can you tell? How can you say no?
So just to make a joke, first of all, of course your manager will add extra work on your plate if you have never said anything before that. You've just continued working and pushing yourself harder and harder, and just here is the main cause of our suffering is expectation. We just expect our managers to see what we are doing, to see the volume of work we are having, and then they will appreciate it, and then they will come and then they will say, okay, we have to lower the volume and so on, and you've been an excellent employee and I'm not going to give you extra work. This is our expectation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would happen in an ideal world. But today's fast-paced, and ever-changing work environment is far from ideal. So what we need to do, and we must never forget that we have the power of choice, and it's about creating our own life balance, work-life balance. Yeah. So we can again come up with 10 reasons why you cannot speak up with your manager and say, hold on, I'm swamped. I can't take it anymore. It's I can't put any more load on my plate. We have so many reasons why we don't do that, and many of them are related to fear, right? Fear of losing our job, fear of not being able to find a better job, fear of not being able to find maybe a better manager, or not having the mood to go into a discussion, not being confident enough to go and to start a discussion. So there are so many reasons we won't go to our manager and say that we are swamped, right? Fear is one of the most important ones. So let's not forget that as we think, so shall it be, right? So if we think that it won't happen, it won't happen. It's in our choice. It's in our power to choose. So now, assuming that you have an excellent time management, and I actually invite everybody to first check the time management, right? Assuming that you have an excellent time management and you prioritized everything and you have you have a great performance. Now let's think about the dialogue that one person has to have with his manager. And let's follow the communication model we described earlier, because we will continue to refer to it throughout the session. So probably your boss doesn't really want to hear a long list of complaints. It's just it's just going into a discussion with a list of complaints. It won't help completely at all. So now, knowing your customer, it means know your manager. So it means think like a manager. What would your manager want you to do? Well, that would be find solutions. So you need to start looking for solutions about how you can take work from your plate, remove that load, make it lighter, right? How can you do that? You have to, consider all the solutions that your manager will actually take into account, and then you write them down and you create a plan. So, for instance, you consider colleagues in a different department that can, share some of your responsibility. You can think of hiring interns or hiring students from local colleges. You can ask your manager, if there are any project deadlines that can be extended, and decide on a new due date. So you can go through the thinking process that your manager will actually do when you go to him with your list of complaints. Now you go back from understanding what your manager will do and the solution he needs to find, to yourself, to know your own objectives. What do you want? You want to have a successful outcome. You want to have less work, and you want to focus more, on your own priorities. So what can you do, right? You need to create a plan. You need to create a document, for instance, with your responsibilities, to compare them to what you were doing when the workload was manageable. And highlight the changes that occurred during that period. Why you are getting more work? What happened? There must be a reason how that happened, right? You need to consider presenting your information, maybe in some bullets, maybe as easy as possible, as simple as possible, as concise as possible, so that your manager will only look at facts. And you also need to give numbers, like, for instance, show the increase in your hours, show the productivity you've been having or not in the past weeks. Express your concern for the quality of work, because obviously if you are swamped, probably the quality is less and less, right? So you just need to create a plan to explain the manager exactly what happened and how. And then you also set your own goals. What do you actually want from that conversation? Okay, you want less work, but how? Yeah, think about how you want to shift the workload, how you want to extend the deadlines. How can you do that? What is it in your power that you can actually do that? So provide ideas, right? Provide ideas to your boss. Make your boss see that you've been thinking about it. that you don't just go there, bump into his office and have a list of complaints and start crying, and even, you know, worse. Because that's the next thing that I'm gonna say, manage your emotions. You won't go in there and you're not gonna start crying. That's the last thing your manager wants to see, right? So you need to be, obviously it's stressful for you, so you may be very stressed, but in a conversation with your manager, you need to be at the same level with him. Don't forget, for an effective process, you need to be at the same level, which means you need to have the same energy, the same attitude. So if you start crying, of course, your manager, you know, will be pissed, or will feel guilty. So therefore, we need to learn to communicate honestly, but in a very concise way, directly, with a gentle tone, and tempering your comments. Use diplomacy to create an environment of mutual respect. So let your boss know that you sincerely appreciate the job. You know, you sincerely appreciate his help or her help for finding a healthy work balance. And at the end of the conversation, you need to express gratitude that your manager is helping you to figure out a solution. So first of all, just to summarize, yeah, it's all about thinking like a manager. So knowing your customer in that moment, think like that manager, which means find solutions. Go with a list of solutions. Then secondly, you need to create a plan that will describe the situation with everything that happened in that period and why and how, with bullet points, with graphics, facts for your boss to really be able to analyze it without emotions, just pure facts, with you being very confident on what you are saying. Yeah, be concise and no emotions, because, you know, let's not forget, someone like our physiology, it represents 55% of the way people interpret the communication you're having. So more than half of the meaning of that communication stays in physiology, in your state, and you can transmit that. So if you control that state, if you keep your head, you know, clean and clear, and you have a concise, normal, gentle, respectful conversation, then you will create a similar kind of environment.
Okay, so Floriana, what you're saying is that if your manager's coming up to you right now with work and you know you're swamped and you cannot take it on, but you feel usually the first thing you notice that you feel like an emotion, right? You either get angry or you get upset or you get afraid, maybe even. Like you said, fear is a large part of this.
Yeah.
Should you respond straight away? Because they're coming over with more work, so they're expecting you to pick that up or accept that right now. How do you respond then? Do you ask them to talk to them later, or do you take on the work and then arrange a meeting with them?
Well, Kim, to be honest, preferably you shouldn't wait until you get there.
Okay.
Yeah, so preferably at this moment in time, if you're swamped already, you should not wait for your manager to come and put more on your plate.
Okay.
Because as I said at the beginning, of course your manager will come and put more because you've pushed yourself, but you said nothing. So of course your manager will say, "Oh, okay, well maybe she's she's having her own way to deal with extra workload. Well, I'm just gonna give her more." So of course the first obviously if he's not a very empathetic boss, and he or she is not feeling and not seeing what's going on, then yes, they will come and put more on your desk because you haven't said anything before that. So preferably you should not wait until that moment. And if you wait until that moment, don't start the discussion at that particular moment because you're filled with stress. and probably anger, as you said, because yeah, here it is, another task, another assignment. So you should take your time to calm down, to look at your objectives, to see what you really want to have, what you really want to achieve, and then make the plan, and then go to your manager and talk to your manager and present the situation as it is.
Yeah, so guarding your own boundaries is a big one in this thing as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's what also at the beginning, we have this power of choice, people. We have this choice. It's in our power. We need to set our own boundaries, and if we need to create our own work-life balance, because nobody else will create it for us. Will create for us. And
Absolutely.
people will push. This is it. People will push you to do more and more and more. This is the life we are now living in, right? This is the environment we are working in. Everything is about faster, faster, more, more. But we just need to understand, what's more actually. What does more mean for me?
Yeah, so what is more and what is enough? What is enough?
Yeah,
So that needs to be straight. And from there on, when you want to talk to your manager, again, like you said in the beginning, be clear about your objectives and be on time in this case as well. I think that's a great takeaway. And with that, I do want to go into the second question because we got a few more prepared for you.
uh-huh. Let's see.
Some of these questions are sent in, of course, by our group as well on Facebook. So there's a little bit of a background story to some of them, and this one is one of them. So the main question is, there is gossip or bullying going on the work floor. Should I notify my manager and how? And this is one that it pops up so now and then, not too often, luckily, but as we all know, in some offices there is a lot of gossip going on, sometimes even bullying of one of your colleagues. Maybe you are even the victim of bullying or gossiping. um, should you notify your manager about this, Floriana? Because I can imagine that it's not really good for the atmosphere amongst your colleagues and the team.
Yeah, absolutely, Kim. Yeah, unfortunately, this is that kind of event that you really need to treat it with huge responsibility. So you also have two choices here, how you actually participate in that conversation, in that gossip conversation, in that bullying, or do you jump in, or do you stay silent, and then maybe you want to talk to your manager, or maybe you don't. Actually, there was a survey at some point, I remember, and amongst the targets of bullying, 40% never told. They never told. They never jumped in. They were just silent. So it's we have to also decide what we want to do. We want to be silent, or we want to speak out loud. And when we want to speak up and understand, help the situation, then we can start thinking of a plan. Like, for instance, the first step would be to identify the root of the problem. So both gossiping and bullying people are they are actually trying to overcome ego. It's if you want, bullying is a cheap way to nurse a hurt ego. So a bully will always try to pull you down in order to push himself up, right? And we need to take a closer look of what's in it for that person. What is actually what is he or she gaining from this situation, from bullying others or gossiping others? And what we need to do, we need to also stay empathetic. I'm going back to my first principle at the beginning of the session, right? Empathy. So instead of judging, and spread the word, we need to think of potential solution to help that person. So we need to understand what's actually driving them to do this. What's the need behind? And then you look at yourself as well, because you're part of the process. If you are there, you're part of the process, you're part of the discussion. So you need to look at yourself as well, and you need to understand your strengths and your weaknesses, because if you want to jump in, you need to know how you do that. If you want to talk to your manager, again, you need to know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, how can you help the situation. It's just about spreading the word and telling to your manager, yeah, this is what's going on, you take responsibility for it, or you actually want to help. So my advice here would be, first of all, assess the impact of the behavior. So when you go to talk to your manager, you already have a plan, right? And in this plan, first of all, you need to assess the impact. So what's the impact of that situation from an organizational perspective? What does it bring? As you said, the atmosphere or people may suffer and so on. But what was the impact from an organizational point of view? And then you need to understand if you want to intervene on the spot and talk to that person, or if you want to keep silent and you want to maybe talk to your manager afterwards. And if you want to jump in, it's very interesting because we can actually do that. We have the power to interrupt the pattern of the bullying person. We do have the power to interrupt that pattern. We can address that person also personally. We can address it in private. We don't need to jump in that conversation at that moment in time, because normally bullies hate to be publicly humiliated. So then we need to create an environment of confidence for him, where that person feels that is not. We don't point fingers at them in public, but we try to help. And by understanding what drives them, the need behind, we can answer to that need privately to that person directly. Now, again, if you want to talk to your manager and you want to notify, you may consider just the same process that we went through. What would your manager need? So know your customer, know your manager. What does he need? What does he need? What does he need to do? What are the solutions? Come up with solutions. Come up, be creative, and come up. Think about from a leadership point of view. Be the leader. Try to be the leader. Try to come up with solution to understand. Okay, what's the situation? What's the impact? Express your concern for the culture, for the productivity of the team. Explain the potential solutions that you found in order to solve the problem in a constructive way. Present the situation in a constructive way, like a lesson from which everybody can learn and grow. So work together with your manager as a team to find the best approach. I think that's the best advice that I can give you now in this situation. Is you need to either decide if you keep silent or if you jump in. If you jump in, you either address the bully directly or you go and talk to your manager. If you address the bully directly, then you need to understand the need behind, and then you need to address that need and help the person understand the impact he or she has in the organization. And if you talk to your manager, then you need to think like a manager. You need to present solutions, and you need to go there not from a position of, let me tell you what happened. Oh my God, this is really bad. It shouldn't happen in our organization. This is blah blah blah. You should present it from a constructive way. Okay, this is the situation. This is the impact. These are the solutions I thought of. This is what I believe we can all learn. And now I ask for your guidance and vision as my manager, how to work together as a team and approach it. I think that would be my
Right.
advice.
And in the worst case scenario, if your manager is saying, "Oh, don't be silly, there's nothing going on," um, should you stop there, or if you feel like it's your responsibility to really pick this up, do you think you should go to HR then, or is there a point where it's no longer your business or no longer your concern?
So, you know, Kim, if you prepare the conversation
Mhm.
as thoroughly as possible, if you assess the impact, if you present the facts, the manager cannot ignore you. If he still considers, you know, if he still says, okay, this is nothing, then yes, probably you need to take into account going to HR and talking to your to some of the people in there. And so taking the problem to the next level. But normally, when you have a clean plan and you have a clear point to your manager with facts and with solutions and with clear perspectives and very from a very constructive way, your manager will choose to be part of the team and to help you with that. So I
Yes.
mean by a thorough preparation, I mean really find facts, really find that impact. You know, talk to people and see what's going on. Look at the productivity level. Bring in facts and data. So then the manager cannot say no.
Yeah, so again, like you said, the main things that you need to consider is take away the emotion from it and come with your objectives. Come with like bullet points and explain why and how and like and the part in which you can help. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And ask for help as well.
Mm-mm.
Ask for if someone can help you. If there's somebody in the company who has seen it already and knows it and can help you create the plan for the conversation with your manager.
Okay, so if you
Put
can
it
get help, so it's like two people or three people going up to the manager, you get more credibility then.
absolutely, absolutely.
That's
Yeah, so by having also a team, right, working together with your colleagues, and by having a good plan ahead, then your manager will be forced to listen to you
Okay, so we've
because
got that noted. That's a really, really good one, especially the last takeaway as well to get some help in. Um, I
yes,
think
and just position yourself at the same level as your manager means that you think like a manager. So when you come up with solutions already and you ask for guidance and vision, trust me, all managers will give a guidance, will state an opinion because they want to be the managers, they want to have the vision. But you don't go there to ask for answers, you go there with answers.
that's a very, very good one indeed. So there's a little difference in that. So you don't ask for answers, you go in with answers, and then you ask for their vision.
Exactly.
All
Yeah.
right. Let's
This
see
is what I
how that applies to our next question because we have a few more. Question number three, I know we discussed this previously as well, is how do you ask for something big? So you want something of your manager, like a pay rise or working less hours. This is one that's quite big for parents as well. Once you've had a baby or when you have younger children, most people do want to work less hours, and in the Netherlands, that's quite common to do as well. But how do
Mhm.
you go into that office and discuss this with your manager?
Okay. So uh, that's interesting because a lot of my friends have encountered problems in this direction, and the first question that needs to be addressed, obviously, it's you have an outstanding performance. Yeah. So I'm gonna have this hypothesis, and I'm gonna assume that we talk about an employee who has an outstanding performance. Yeah, and we look at how would you ask for a raise. So again, we go back to the communication model: know your customer, know your manager. Why would your manager give you a raise? You have to prove it. Okay, how do you prove it? How do you prove that you deserve it? And now this is the key question that I want to address to a lot of people who may, listen to us now or later on. How many times a year does a person or that do you have performance evaluation with your manager? Once, twice, never? Because guess what? When you ask for a performance evaluation, invoking your performance level, your eagerness to improve it, your wish to create outstanding value, managers will listen, because then you're playing the same game they are playing. Yeah, they want to achieve success. They want to deliver value in their department. So if they see you very focused on your performance, then they will support you. But how will they see you that you're focused? How many of us are we asking from the very beginning when we get hired, when we are going to have the next training, when we are going to, what kind of evaluation we're going to get? How many of us are asking that? This is very important. I know it's not rocket science, but it's not applied. Trust me, a lot of people I know have no evaluation in place in their companies. So then you go and you say, hey, manager, I want a raise. Based on what? So you have to create, first of all, you have to create a certain type of evaluation. You have to create your own evaluation as well. Like there are so many online profile tests that you can use to look at your work performance, to analyze it yourself, and then to go to your manager and sit together and look into it. So once you analyze yourself, once you know your skills, once you know your areas of improvement, then you can discuss together with your manager how you can improve that performance. And then you do it over and over and again, and then you perform over and over, and then your manager sees that you're performing, and then the raise should come naturally. If that doesn't come, then you go back to the plan, then you go back to the communication level, and you start writing down something that is key here. How do you ask for it? You ask by proving the added value you are able and committed to bring to your manager and to your company. This is it. This is the key reason that they will give you a raise, the added value you bring for them. So you need to take a pen and paper, and then you need to write down what's your added value, how you're bringing that to your manager, and be very specific about it. Prove it with facts, prove it with forecast if needed, with numbers. So then you have this plan. You know exactly how you're going to bring the added value. Then you go into your manager office and you have to transmit a message, right? Okay, how you position, now we go back to the communication model, and you position yourself at the same level as your manager. So you have the confidence, you manage your emotions, and you express clearly facts and figures about why you deserve that raise. Right, so it's just a matter of understanding why would that manager give you the raise. How can you convince that manager to give you the raise? Why do you deserve it? How can you prove your performance?
And does it work the same way if you want to work less hours?
Well, I guess you always have reasons, right? Why? I mean, you just said especially for parents. And I know here in the Netherlands, the work environment is very flexible for mothers to work less hours. And then you need to, again, be very specific about the value you're bringing in the 4 days and why they need to maybe hire somebody else for 1 day.
Yeah. So could you compare working less hours to asking for like a longer period of time off, for instance, for a sabbatical can take a year, but it could also be like, okay, I would like to take 2 months off to travel or go to my home country, help with my sick nana, something like that. So does that kind of fall into the same section, or do you say like, oh, if you want to take a larger period of time off, that's not kids related or arranged in the Dutch system, would you treat that the same way, as in showing why you are good in the time that you're there and why there you need someone else to replace you?
Well, you always need to think from their perspective. Why would they be happy that you're leaving? Yeah, why would they be happy that you're taking a sabbatical? So you can obviously invoke the productivity, the creativity. If you go for a training as well, you need to understand, what skills would be enhanced. But when we talk about sabbatical, I already think that you need to have around, I think, 5 to 7 years in the company in order to have the right to get a sabbatical. I think every company has a different policy about sabbaticals. But you need to be in the company for at least a couple of years. I think at least 3-4 years, or even in my company, for instance, it's 7 years. But I have learned about companies who had the 10-year policy before taking the sabbatical. So by having already 7 or 10 years in a company, I really assume you have proven your added value.
Yes. Yeah. So
and if not, you start
sure.
putting a plan together. you have to explain why you are taking the sabbatical from their point of view, not from your point of view. Empathy is the most important thing here.
Yeah, so the moment you start saving up for your sabbatical, you better start showing your added value as well then.
Exactly.
So you got
Absolutely.
a few years to show for it. Okay, so
Yeah.
put that on your to-do list. If you're planning that world trip or you do want to go abroad for some time, put that on your to-do list. Show your added value to the business and see if you could take time off there. Because it would be nice if you come back from your world trip and have no money left to start working right with your old employer, right?
That's a good point.
That
Yeah,
would be great. All right, number 4. This is a question that came in through one of our workshops last year. It was a LEVO workshop about listening and communication as well on the work floor. And we have a few girls that we're talking to who work with managers who are from a different background, mainly Eastern European or Asian, where the manager-employee environment is just it works a little bit different than we're used to. So like you said, you need to be kind of on the same level. In these environments, it's more that your manager just tells you what to do and that's it. And in this specific company, it was not custom to ask any questions. So your manager would tell in the meeting to everyone, this is what you need to do. But if you weren't absolutely sure or not fully confident with their expectations, you couldn't say anything without feeling stupid or being even told off that it's not in your place to ask questions, but just to do what you were told. So it's a really difficult it's a really difficult environment that they were in. But do you have any tips for this? So if you're not fully confident with your expectations, how could you address that without feeling bad about it?
Well, so what I understand about from this whole story, and I think it's one of my favorite questions, is that at the core of this question stays a key concept that is affecting our lives continuously, and that's what I said before, called fear. Fear of what others believe of us, fear of being judged, fear that we are not smart enough, fear that we are not good enough for in a certain moment. Because we at some point in our lives, we all have this lack of confidence in ourselves. And from this lack of confidence steams up all the other fears. So there are two options that comes to mind here, no matter the environment in the company. One is to give in and to say, okay, I'm not gonna ask, I'm gonna stay in my comfort zone, I'm not gonna push it, I'm not gonna look stupid. Why bothering looking stupid? And you do an assignment without even knowing that it's in the right direction. And you may succeed. Who knows? Maybe you're lucky and you may succeed in it. But you may completely screw up as well, right? So that even means losing even more respect, perhaps more confidence, and even losing your job. So I want you guys to take a few moments and to think about your main fears. And even after this webinar, just write them down and understand what have you lost in your lives until today by holding on to these fears. And if you continue to hold on to these fears, what would you lose in the future? And let's just assume, take responsibility on this, because it's all about choice. And okay, if you say, I'm gonna face this fear, and even though I'm gonna look stupid, I will ask for more questions. Then we can go back to this, and then we can think of a communication plan. Only then, only in the moment when you decide that you're gonna face your fear of looking stupid, or being judged, or whatever others may believe of us. So once you face this fear, we can start and think about the communication model you can apply in that situation. For instance, lesson number 1 here is do your homework. So don't just go in your manager's office and ask for more guidelines and ask for more advice, just like this, without giving any thought. Ask yourself, who else is involved in this project? Who can give you extra information, extra directions? What are other projects maybe you have done in the past, and maybe they can serve as a reference for that particular assignment? What kind of resources you have at hand? Like, for instance, we have Google, and I doubt that there's one assignment in this world that has not been performed already by somebody else, and we can learn something from a simple desk research. So involve all relevant parties, understand the assignment from different perspectives, and gather this data, gather the information, analyze it, and then you understand the gaps. And may only in that moment, only when you have the gaps, like only when you are certain that only your manager would answer to those questions, you go and start talking. But then you present to your manager what you have already investigated. Yeah, you're already armed with a plan and with clear objectives, and then you go and then you talk to your manager. So it's again presenting to your manager what you have been doing. It's not that you just stay there and ask for his guidance. You investigated, you explain the data you found, you explain the progress you made, you express why his opinion is important. And that opinion is not important to give you answers, because your manager is not your brain. Your manager is there to bring added value to you and vision. So you formulate clear questions in a way that will open up discussion, will ask for opinion. It's not a closed question. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? No, it's like open up discussions with your manager. Ask for advice from a constructive point of view. And then you won't look stupid, because you've already done your homework. You've already worked a lot to gather information and to do everything you could to understand that assignment, and to do your best to perform it at your highest level.
Yeah, so again, when you come prepared and come with answers and ask for added value, then you'll never look stupid.
Exactly. Okay. And if you aren't convinced about what you're asking for, how can anyone else be? So you need to express absolute conviction in your words, in your physiology. You need to stand straight on your feet, and you need to talk to your manager from the same position.
Yeah, and in the same talk, should you also avoid discussion about certain things? So if you come into the office and you come with your objectives, your answers, and you're asking for the added value, but if you don't agree to it or it's still not clear, should you go into discussion, or should you just step back and go back to the things that you already know that you found out?
you know when you don't get something that you want, you just change and adjust, and you start again until you get it. That's my somehow one of my key principles in life. Change and adjust until you achieve what you want. So change the question, change the approach of the question. If you don't understand it, change it. Don't say, don't create questions that will make your manager say yes or no, but open conversation. Yeah, create room for conversation and opinion. And if you still didn't get it, you change and adjust. You change and adjust over and over again. This is like a golden rule for anything we do in our lives. Even if it's with a manager or with our kids or we change and adjust every time, because at some point we will find the right approach. We'll gather knowledge, we'll gather experience, we know what we did wrong, and we continue. Change and adjust. That's my number one principle, I think.
Until you figure out what your customer's language
Exactly.
is. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this could take quite some preparation indeed, but I guess practice makes perfect.
Absolutely, of course. We all have to put our effort into it, and just understand that it's not that easy to perform and to get what we want at every moment in time. We need to do our best to prepare ourselves, and then we will get the best. Don't forget, in order to get this, we need to give.
Mm-mm.
So first, in order to get solutions and guidance and ideas from our managers, we need to give.
Yes, well,
In order to,
Floriana, we're
yeah.
already approaching 9 o'clock now, so we're
Oh
almost
wow,
at the
we
end,
can,
or
I
we're
think we
almost
can
out of
finish
time. But I'd like to suggest just to go on because we have one more question, and then I would like to go into Q&A if there are any questions at the moment. So if you
yeah,
already
sure,
have
sure.
questions, please go down to the questions part in your webinar panel, write them out. I'm going to ask Floriana the last question, then we get into your live questions. So we're running a little bit late. I'd like to close off at 9:15. So if you have another 15 minutes, please hang in there. We'll get to your questions. So question number 5. How can I prepare my manager for wanting to evolve or move further without putting my face and job on the line? And the reason it's formulated very broadly, but to give
Yeah,
you a little bit of context for the background is that if you're working in a company and it's quite busy and you're doing your role perfectly, of course your manager does not want to lose you. But at one point you're saying, okay, I'm ready, I'm done here, and I do want to evolve, and I want to go for another job interview or an open vacancy within the business or maybe somewhere else. So I do want to go move further, get out of this job. How do I notify my manager about this? Because I either need time off to go for a job interview, or I'm going for a job interview in house, so my manager will be notified. How can I do this without letting them think that I'm just leaving them or that I want to get out of here?
so just looking at this question for my own clarity, are we also talking about quitting and moving on to another job in another company or in another site?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right, because I had the feeling that from your question here is about evolving, move further, but more into the company, inside the company.
What would be more I think it might be a bit more difficult if you're trying to move forward within the same company, because if you want to leave your current company, then you can just take hours off, go for a job interview, and leave whenever you're ready.
Yeah,
So what happens when you want to move on within the same company and you know you
exactly.
have to
Yeah,
go for a job interview and you know that your manager will be notified then because they will ask, what your
yeah.
performance is like.
Okay, so I want to highlight here one keyword in this question, which is extremely important, and that is to evolve. So why do people need to continue learning? Why do we need to continue learning? Yeah, we need to grow, and growth is one of our fundamental needs, human needs. So once we stop learning, we stop growing, and to be honest, we start dying. So we just need to understand how are we growing at any moment in time, inside the company or outside the company. Therefore, I think I need to ask this again, and I touched on this before. Um, how many of us actually negotiate from the very beginning of an employment contract the kind of performance evaluation, training, and growth policy that we want to have in the next years in the company? How many of us? Probably a very few. So it's very important to solve this. It's very important to do ourselves a favor and create an evaluation plan and a growth plan that will support our future growth. And that's the main thing that I want people to keep in mind. It's us who have to do it. Now, of course, let's assume you are very unlucky and you have a manager who doesn't care about you growing and your employment, your development. And also, let's assume that you have not discussed this from the very beginning of your employment contract. So now you want to grow, right? You want to maybe get an expensive training, maybe move to another department on a different job. So how do we talk to our managers about this? Okay, let's go back to the communication process quickly, and let's see how we need to be able to be on the same level with our manager and understand their needs and their points of view. Yeah, why our manager would support my growth? Obviously, he will have some struggles with, finding another person to replace me, or he needs to motivate this in front of the board, or he has to justify an investment in him if we talk about training, and so on. So, in order to create our plan to go into that talk, an evaluation form will help a lot. So if we have a quarterly or a yearly evaluation form in our hands, we know exactly the growth path we've been having in the past years. And hopefully you have discussed that with your manager already. We know the skills and we know where we want to go, in which direction we want to move forward. So we need to create objectives, and we need to understand what do we want to get from that talk with our managers, right? Look at the manager's needs and pain points. What would that manager need to do in order to fill your post or your job, or not fill, sorry, to replace you, right? To find somebody to replace your job. Or what would be his biggest challenge when you leave that position, that role? Write it down. Write it down with answers. Explain your views. Explain how you can help the manager support that transition period. Maybe there's somebody already in the department who can take your job, and maybe you can help that person learn faster. Maybe there's somebody outside the department but in the same company who can also do the switch. So come up with ideas, come up with solutions. Again, try to find solutions. Think like a manager. Try to find answers. Explain the areas of improvement from your evaluation form that would be enhanced through through you changing the job. So which areas of improvement? And if it's in the same company, explain how by changing to that new position you will bring extra value to the company and to a specific department and then to the company. With facts, with productivity forecast, with creativity as well, with ideas. So write it down again, put it in writing, go to your manager with a complete plan of solutions and ideas, and then work together as a team. And at the the first thing you need to do to avoid your manager finding out from HR that you're gonna have an interview for a different position is go there and talk to that manager from the very beginning. Make it clear.
I can imagine that it is important that your manager hears from you that you want to move on and not from HR or from someone else in the
Exactly.
company, right?
Yeah, that's the first thing you need to do. And how you start the conversation is exactly as I explained earlier. Because you don't go there and say, hey, I'm going to leave. You go there and you explain with your performance evaluation in your hands what objectives, what outcome you want to have from that move. What is the added value that will bring to the company if you move to that position? What drives you to move to that position? Make him also understand that you see his pain points and you want to help him in that transition. So be a team. Act like a team. Don't act like I'm the employee, you're the manager. A big gap between the two of us.
Okay, so there's no big gap between. You're all in there with the same end vision in mind, right? To help the business, help the company, help your
Yeah,
team, help the floor to do your jobs better
exactly.
and to be
Yeah, and just let your manager know how you will shine even better, How will you bring added value even more than you've already done that?
Those are some great answers there, Floriana. I'm really happy that we're recording all of this because I'm trying to soak up all your wisdom and all your answers. And we know it all comes down to don't get into emotions, get prepared, show your objectives, give answers, don't ask for answers, but ask for value, for added
Mm-hmm.
value. So there's this broad line that goes in between. Um,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of extra tips. So I'm glad we can hear this back, at least if the recording was done right, the technical part. So if you
Yeah.
don't mind, I'd like to switch the screen now so I can see if any questions were answered from our or asked from our audience.
Yeah,
We can
sure.
go into
Let us
some
know.
live Q&A if there's any. Let me see. Okay. The first question, we've got four at the moment. The first question is, sorry, before we get into this, I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible because I do want to close up in about 5 minutes. So please hang in there, wait for last questions. We'll get through it a bit faster for you. Question
Mm-hmm.
number one, how do you ask for performance feedback from a very busy manager? So, assuming they don't have any time for face-to-face catch-ups and you do want to stay on top of their mind.
All right. Well, probably if it's the first time you have that performance evaluation with your manager, you just have to be confident enough and go there and ask for a time, a certain time in his agenda where he's able to listen to you. But again, my point here is just like when we are driving a car, let's not wait to repair the car, let's prevent repairing the car. So before that, before going in this problem of not having time, and make it clear from the very beginning of your employment contract what kind of evaluation and performance evaluation you want to have and when. Is it quarterly? Is it twice a year? Is it once a year? Involve HR as well. It's not just about your manager, and of course it depends on the type of performance, but involve HR as well. And you know, when you explain to your manager that it's about your value in the company, it's about how you help the team, it's about how you improve your skills. When you come prepared in the conversation, no manager will say, no, I don't have time to listen to you. There's no such thing. And don't forget, what you tell to yourself, like for instance, my manager doesn't have time for me. If you tell that to yourself, that's what's gonna happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Floriana, do you think that the dentist thing would help here as well? So my dentist does this thing that when we had an appointment, at the end of the appointment, she's always holding me there to get a new appointment. Because she knows I'm right there and then. And you know, with the dentist, if you leave their office, you're like, oh yeah, we'll make another appointment. We'll see. I'll see you in like 2 years. But what they do is before you leave their office, they're like, okay, let's schedule in your new appointment. I need to see you in 6 months' time. Can you go in November 2016?
Yeah.
Would that be
Well,
something to do with your manager as well?
I think absolutely, Kim. Yeah, these are some tricks that you can always use, you know, and um, uh, from this kind of tricks perspective, I think we have Google and we have plenty of examples. But what I would like people to understand is that it's in our power to change this, and we just need to find ways to do it. So if you think the manager won't have time, he won't have time. If you create your best approach with the best plan and you go and you talk to your manager, even though he canceled the meeting 3 times until today, the 4th time he won't cancel it. As I said before, the golden rule, change and adjust. Change the approach and adjust and start all over again. He will give in at some point, trust me. You go there so often, he will want to make you do your performance evaluation.
Oh, so go in there. It's for your own best interest. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying. I've got a few other questions. The next one is, what are the best cues I can look for in my manager's behavior to understand what he or she wants? So how can you start reading your manager by looking at their behavior?
Well, first of all, by making yourself part of the team, by being empathetic and asking questions, asking about KPIs, asking about the projects he has or she has, asking about what kind of results he has to deliver at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year, what kind of preparation he's been doing and how you can help with that. So ask questions to get answers about the situations your manager finds himself in. The more questions we ask, also with our manager, but also with people around our manager, our colleagues, maybe the board, maybe different departments, then we get more knowledge about maybe the KPIs or maybe the main project, the business plan of that particular year or quarter. So we need to gather information through everything we can. We need to gather information through ourselves, obviously, by feeling and by being intuitive about our managers, but also himself or herself, also our colleagues. Also bring in every party you have at hand. I think that's, you know, using our resources. It's always I don't have time, or I don't have my manager is not open, or it's not about having resources. It's about being resourceful, if I can say like that. It's about finding those resources you need.
Okay, that's a very good one. I've got two more questions for you. So if you're listening now, I've got the two questions are already in. So if you have any more questions, please go to the LEVO League Facebook group, Amsterdam. Ask your question there. I will post something later on as well. So Floriana can also answer your questions after this webinar. I'm just going to ask the last two questions and then we really need to close off. So question number 3. is, it's quite a long one, so stay tuned. I left my employer to do my master's, and we agreed that they will rehire me upon graduation. I'm currently discussing the details, and many other colleagues are telling me that I should ask for a raise. I'm a bit concerned that I would ask for too much. Already the rehiring process on itself is pretty tricky. What would you suggest to do? So, would you go into a pay raise as well, or say, okay, just leave it at rehiring only?
Absolutely. I would ask everything I could ask. So, guys, if you have, assuming you have the capabilities and you have all the knowledge you believe you have, at your highest level, and you add value to that company and you can prove the value, then go for it. Ask for everything you want to ask. But just, if you don't ask, you're never gonna receive. So the only thing here is that, of course, you can ask for a 50% raise. I don't know. You can ask for a big car in front of the door. But if you can't prove the value that you're bringing to that company, everything is zero. Your manager won't give you any penny more. So it's not about going and asking for a raise. It's about how can I prove my value in order to get a raise.
And this will be perfect, right? Because she's been away to do a master's degree. So when you go back to that company, I assume that you've got plenty of added value to give there. You've just finalized your master's. You've been away.
Absolutely.
You've got more experience now.
More knowledge, and also you can negotiate, you can forecast for the next 3-4 months what your productivity level would be. If it increased since your last when last time when you were hired there, then you can prove that your value increased as well. So then you can really ask for a raise with good grounds, good reasons. So find different ways to negotiate your package, and not to last but not least, ask for performance evaluation, because only based on that evaluation you will get a raise. Only based on clear KPIs and evaluation we get raises.
Yes, so ask for evaluation. And now, since you're in the rehiring process, this would be the good time as well, right? To set those evaluations. So to address that you want to have them often. What do you suggest? To do it quarterly or every half a year, or?
I would do it quarterly for different KPIs. I would do it twice a year for main skills.
Okay. Perfect.
So quarterly for different
yeah,
KPIs, specific KPIs, and then every 6 months for for main skills.
Okay, for the main skills. Good. So we've got that noted down. So on to our very last question, and it's a long one again. So I'm gonna dive into it. So the question goes as following: if you have a manager that says that he or she is extremely busy and asks if she or her time is the most important, how do you communicate that you also need your time and liberty to organize your day? Just need to scroll down here, sorry. The manager normally interrupts a lot and expects you to be there when he or she has the time to deal with a certain problem, even if you are in the middle of something else. Is it normal to constantly drop what you have to do to serve the manager and adapt to his or her time? Or is it also okay to state that you need the time to focus on certain tasks uninterrupted? So can your manager just barge in and wake you up from your work whenever they want to? Or can you tell your manager then, okay, I need to finish this first, can we arrange a meeting later on?
Well, I think the person who asked this question has already answered to it. Of course, you need to state that you need time to focus, right? Of course, you need to explain why, but the way you do it matters. So instead of doing it on the spot when your manager asked you something and interrupted you, you would stop, you would do what your manager said, but then you would calm down, you would manage your emotions, you would prepare your speech as we agreed, because you already know your customer, yeah, you know your manager, you know how that person is and how she reacts. So you need to prepare your plan, and then you go into a conversation and you send your message to the receiver, who has to have the same level of, you know, attitude, ideas, energy as you have. You have to manage your emotions and then send that message with confidence. And that message is key. It has to include facts about why you don't want to be interrupted, how that affected in time, how did it affect you in time before, what kind of I don't know, you lost your creativity, you lost your focus, you lost your whatever. You need to state it down with clear examples. So you don't need to blame her for doing it. You just need to state a situation with confidence and gentle tone. And then you ask for guidance. You don't say, I think you should not bother me again, Mr. Manager. No, you say, okay, giving all these facts, having in mind the way they affected me and my productivity level, and knowing that I want to deliver an outstanding value to this company and to you, my manager, how do you suggest to proceed? You know, I have a few solutions, A, B, C, D, E. What do you think about them? So you work together. You don't position yourself, you're the employee, he's your manager, there is a gap between. You cross that gap, you go next to your manager, you work as a team, and you express what you have to express confidently.
That is a great answer, Floriana. Thank you so much for your wisdom and sharing all your tips with us. So I know that, like I said, this was going to be the last question for tonight. If you have a question that you'd really like to be answered, just go over to the Facebook page, Level League Amsterdam, ask your question there, and Floriana will probably answer it somewhere tomorrow, because we're not going to
Yeah.
expect you to be awake for the rest of the evening. So I know that you've prepared a little takeaway for us as well.
Yes, what you have there on the screen is a belief of excellence that I would like, I think everybody who will watch this webinar to keep in mind. There's no failure, sorry, it's only feedback. So I hope everybody will manage to face their fears, be empathetic, understand their customer, which is their manager, and then playing with that communication model to have an effective dialogue. So everything stays, you know, in our power. It's in our choice. There's no failure. It's only feedback, and the only thing I need to do is be empathetic, understand the needs, prepare my speech, and then be at the same level as my manager, and with confidence work together to solve any issue that can appear. I think that's about it.
It is fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Well,
much
thank
for
you.
helping us out tonight and for your tips. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the Facebook group as well to
Sure.
provide us some more feedback on the questions that will be asked there. I know I have a few ones as well. I won't bother you with that today. Like I said
All right.
before, we have recorded this webinar, so we can always listen back to all your tips. If you have anything more to share, please do so in another occasion. For our audience, for our listeners, hi guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you have any more questions, go to the Level League Facebook group. And like I said before, I think I've said it about 5 times now. Hopefully, we have recorded this first webinar. I really hope so. That everything worked. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and I'm looking forward to see you next time. Have a great
Oh,
evening, y'all.
thank you too for arranging this, Kim. Yeah. Thank you
No
all for
problem.
listening.
No problem. Have a good evening, Floriana.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.